Halloween Haunt opens September 19th at Kings Island. Look at hiring challenges impact the experience guests are going to be expecting now that they're paying for the mazes. Hello, everyone. I'm Don. He's Ryan, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is your trusted source of Kings Island news. Hey, let's kick this off by thanking our Prestige members. I want to give a big shout out to Miss Mandy, 1983, Lil Mac, 21, Brian Hauser, 330T, Logan Lipper, Aaron Bort, Jacob Fix, Damon Barnes, Dakota Cole, Eric Grau, Dustin Jackson, Songstress Miku, Lack Ray, Galaxy B-Boy, Medic 302, Eastern Coaster, Guys and Girls, Justin Y, and Mike Garrett. Thank you guys so much for supporting Tower Topics at the highest level. That's the Prestige level. If you want to be involved in Tower Topics, there's a link in the description. Members get early access to the videos, exclusive content, exclusive live streams, and hey, some tiers even get some free stuff. So hit that link if you want to be involved.
So, Ryan, Halloween Haunt just around the corner. And as we've discussed on recent episodes, the mazes, all of them, are going to be an upcharge that you have to pay to go through them now. And one of the things that has been a constant theme out there is a lot of people saying that they don't mind paying as long as it's not going to be the same exact experience in those legacy mazes, the ones that are returning, year after year. We're talking Kilmart, Slaughterhouse, those types of mazes. But it's been kind of a ghost town at some of the haunt auditions and not going as well as they probably need it to be to deliver on that promise that this is going to be an elevated experience for those that pay.
Yeah, it's funny because this, and honestly, let's say this now. We can chalk this up to they don't have anybody to do this stuff anymore. But I remember when you were the PR guy, you made a lot of waves in terms of. Because I remember they used to do like University of Miami, Ohio. They did one in Northern Kentucky somewhere, University of Cincinnati and stuff, and like you dropped press releases and stuff about it. And I feel like the reason why no one's applying is because they don't know about it.
There's not the awareness that there was before. That's for sure, because you're not seeing anything really in the Cincinnati Enquirer, any type of stories about it. You're not seeing anything on the television stations. You're not seeing any media coming out to cover these haunt auditions. They used to do that. Even on the social media, YouTube. You can go back and look. There were some fun videos using Kings Island's. Staff. We didn't hire any trained actors or anything, but we did a lot of different type of videos to promote that the park was now hiring for Halloween Haunt. You're not seeing really any of that. Occasionally you'll see one of those sponsored kind of things pop through,
right?
But the way the algorithm works, it's easy to get around those. People can click and not have those in their feed anymore. So it's by all indications what we're hearing is that it has been kind of tough, and especially they're looking for those, trained professional actors for The Conjuring, that new maze. And, if that's going to be a really elevated experience, you need the right people in there. So it's kind of been a tough go right now.
It is. And for those of you who are audio listeners, I actually have the casting call up. So they're looking for theatrically trained actors / hosts with the pay starting at $130 a night. And I don't think that he's necessarily looking for people that are part of the Cincinnati Shakespeare Company or the Rockettes. No. I think what he's looking for is people that have done community theater and stuff, just that this isn't their first rodeo doing this sort of thing. So I don't think the ask is very high, and $130 a night is pretty decent pay for doing something that's more of a passion product. But the description says strong storytellers and trained actors who can think on their feet and interact with guests to create a fully immersive experience. You'll guide visitors through the horror with confidence and appeal. That's an odd way of saying that. All materials will be provided and taught during auditions. So if you're a fan of these movies, I can't think of, I guess my favorite horror movie maybe is Freddy versus Jason. I know that's going to be controversial, so that should be a hot take. But I can imagine like if they were doing a Freddy versus Jason maze and I could play either Freddy or Jason, that'd be like really fun to do. So if you're into The Conjuring and you've got acting experience, that could be pretty fun as well. But they're also looking for stunt performers. For some reason, that pays hourly. And if anybody's involved in theater and can tell me why, if there is a good reason why, then I'd love to. $16.25 per hour. Skilled and fearless individuals that can bring terrifying creatures to life through physical performance must be comfortable with crawling, climbing, flying via harness, and or working at heights via stilts. So
Yeah. I was gonna say they did put the poster, like a PDF, posted that several weeks ago, but it was one and done, and then it went back to your regular scheduled programming about the MVP pass. There's just not that awareness out there, and it's a lot of the haunt returning actors, scare actors that try to recruit their friends in that. But for somebody that's now going to have to pay to go through the mazes, Ryan, how do you think people are going to feel if we know the first weekend they'll find a way to have it look pretty good in all the mazes, but say week 3 is your first time going to Halloween Haunt, and there's 2 scare actors in Kilmart.
yeah,
There's maybe 3 in Hotel St. Michelle. You have your 4 or 5 or whatever in Slaughterhouse, but it's no different than what you experienced in past years. But now you paid for it. How are you
sure.
going to feel about that?
Well, I mean, honestly, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. And I think that if they can staff the Conjuring and the dungeon, whatever, I don't have it pulled up in front of me. I think that they should staff those at the expense of the other mazes if they need to, because they people know that Kilmart is tired and old and a retread. They know that Slaughterhouse has been done a million times. And again, no disrespect to anybody who works in those mazes, but they've been around a really long time and people know every turn of them and stuff. But what they really can't afford to have is, that Conjuring, it's $15 and it's so stupid. Or I did the new Dragon maze, and it's
Order of the Dragon, right?
Order of the that's it. I keep on wanting to say Dragon's Lair, but I did that, and it's just like the other ones that they really can't afford to have that. I mean, honestly, I would say at surface level that they can't afford to not staff any of this stuff. But I would say if you have to choose between the lesser of two evils, having that Conjuring staffed and the Order of the Dragon staffed are going to be your priorities. At least that's my guess of it. And they have a bunch of people presumably that bought the all season scare thing, and they already got your money, but they're trying to sell thousands of these per night. I don't think they're banking on people buying the all season scare pass. I think they're banking on people buying it for one night. And if
Right.
that reputation gets out there where it's just kind of like it's the same old lame Kings Island mazes that aren't scary and they're hokey and they're stupid and they're retreads and stuff, this whole thing's going to fail.
We both have mentioned many times we would not want to be guest services on opening night. There's going to be a lot of people going to the park that have no idea that that it's now an upcharge for all these mazes. They've been going for years. They don't really pay attention to social media. They don't feel like they need to really go to the website other than knowing when the dates are. So they don't really look at the details. They're going to go. They're going to get in line for something like Slaughterhouse, and oh, wait a minute, you mean I had to pay for this? So I think we're still, it's we still have like 4 weeks to go before Halloween Haunt starts as we record this episode. So there's still time to communicate all of that, but you need to make sure that the television stations, as they're talking about Halloween Haunt opening, that they're talking about it. You got to make sure that the Cincinnati Enquirer, Dayton Daily News, that they're focused on that. But not only that, it's now an upcharge, but you got to explain why it is. Why now are you charging for these? What's going to be different in those legacy mazes? I think that's the big question that a lot of people have asked me is, okay, I'm paying for it now. What's going to be different about Slaughterhouse? What's going to be different about Hotel St. Michelle? What's going to be different about Kilmart? And the hope is that, they have a lot more scare actors in there to kind of elevate that experience, because they did say these are going to be elevated experience. The others are premium experiences with the Conjuring. The other ones are considered elevated experiences. So they're going to have to figure out a way to, to get some scare actors in there if the auditions don't pick up.
Do you think they would hire us to be scare actors? Okay, I'm gonna take that off the table, because at this point they probably would. So
I don't think. You know what? I really think if you and I showed up, I don't know that they would actually they would consider us. But I did do that before. There's several times that I did get the makeup and all that on, and went out in the park, and as a what they call one of the roamers in that. And I was in the I put myself in the with a member of the media
Mm-hmm.
we went into when they had the Trail of Terror and did that for one night, and that was a fun time. So if you're, if you like the Halloween season, if you're out there listening to this, give it some thought, about being a scare actor because it really is a lot of fun. Now, it's hard work. I mean, you're doing this for 6 hours a night, and it's not easy, especially if you're one of the roamers and that. But it can be a lot of fun, scaring people, and I had a great time doing it. Like I said, the couple of times that I dressed up, and it was an opening night, taking the media and having them go out into the Trail of Terror, and just spending 4 or 5 hours out there and just watching the reaction of guests. I mean, that was a thrill in itself. So, if you've been going there for years and all that, just kind of jump to the other side and think about being a scare actor. Because I think it would be a great experience. And a lot of people that I know that do that either at Kings Island, Cedar Point, they love it.
No, they
And
do it for like years. The year. Like,
and
how
these
long?
are
How long
for
have we had Sam the
jobs too.
Butcher?
I know, but we have people that they have the normal type of jobs. They're people work in law offices, people work, whatever kind of jobs, marketing jobs, um, and they're auto mechanics and all those kind of things, and they love this time of the year. It's like a release for them to go out and do this, and we're only talking. 15 nights, 16 nights that you'd have to do it, when you count the Sundays and the Thursdays and that's in there. So, I think, give it a shot. And I think you can be a reason why this succeeds, with charging for the mazes because they were able to get that staffing level where it needed to be.
Yeah. And let's do our due diligence here. The point of contact, if you're interested in being a haunt actor, scare actors, I used to call him, but I think that fell out of favor, is Kevin.Brunk, Brunck at visitkingsisland.com. Great guy. He's been around forever, produced a bunch of the different shows. But you don't necessarily have to reach out to him unless you have questions. Some of the future looking dates after this podcast drops are the 29th. So these are September. So sorry, August 29th, September 5th. Those dates are going to be from 5 to 8 p.m. And then 5 to 7, these are Saturdays, August 23rd, 30th, and September 6th. So no appointments necessary. If you are considering yourself a trained, theatrically trained actor, then please bring your resume. Interviews will be held at the Human Resources Building. Parking is available in the associate parking lot, which can be accessed from One Team Way. And that's over by was it a Shell station? Sunoco.
Yeah,
It's Sunoco. It's over by Sunoco. So if you're interested in doing that, give it a shot. It is only a couple nights, and a lot of people who do it absolutely love it. Noah's dad, he did it until he had Noah for like 5 years or so. He did Blackout and a bunch of different ones just because it was a passion project. And his brother, Noah's uncle Wes, has been doing it for 15 years or so. Now he's covered in blood in Slaughterhouse for the most part, but super passionate product. So if you're interested, then reach out to Kevin if you have questions. If not, show up. What do you have to lose? I'm telling you now, they probably won't if they need people this badly.
No, it'll be a fun time, but there right now, short of that happening, where a lot of people, taking our advice and giving it a shot. One of the solutions they're looking at right now is they're tapping into the rides department and
Sure.
making these enticing offers to switch from rides to entertainment during the fall season, which is great for the associates. Make a few more bucks and try something different, but that's going to hamper the rides. That might limit what can be open during Halloween Haunt if all the crew members take off. Some crews up to 20% of the crew is already committed to doing haunt instead of working rides. So that's the other alternative that they have to try to fill those positions and make sure those houses, mazes, whatever word you want to use, that they're staffed, adequately staffed. So it is an elevated experience for you and not the same old, same old.
Well, and I think that there is. I want to again play devil's advocate, because first of all, Paramount did that like a lot. Like a lot of my friends that worked in rides back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
God bless them. They'd work until 4 o'clock or so in rides, and then work till 1 a.m. or midnight or whatever as a haunt actor. But I don't think that necessarily, and I know where people are going to go with this, where it's like, well, it's a bunch of rides kids, it's not actors. Well, okay, that's true, but you can bring in a rides kid that can work in maybe slaughterhouse, and then you can have one more person that's done haunt for 3 or 4 years or has done theater or whatever, that can be doing the conjuring, so they can put all their eggs into that basket. So
Correct.
I see what you're saying about rides not being open, and that's that's a whole different problem, but that is a good idea. I feel like, where do
Yeah.
you have the most
That's a
kids? Rides.
solution. Right. That's a solution. It's easier to staff rides than it is to staff the haunt mazes. So you're more likely to find that 16, 17-year-old that's willing to work the scrambler in the fall than you are to have them get into makeup and be in one of those mazes.
Yeah, I've told the story before. I worked for one night for a couple hours at St. Rita's School for the Deaf's haunted house as a volunteer. A friend of mine called me, and he did it all the time and said, "We really need people. Can you come out and do it?" And I was like, "Ah, what the heck?" I have never been more exhausted and sore by the end of that. So it's hard work, but it was really fun. And again, and I never had any desire to do that stuff. Like, I don't, that doesn't do it for me. But the people that do really, really love it. So if you're even thinking about it, again, just show up, do your audition, see where they put you.
Yeah, it can be a great time. You get to make a lot of friends doing this, and there's some, like you said, they live for this season. This is what it's all
Mm.
about for them. And like I said, they have all normal, regular jobs. You would never expect them to be out in slaughterhouse doing what they do in there based on what their real life job is. But really, I think when you look at haunt too, I mean, there's especially the returners, you've got some really good dedicated people that come back year after year and do this.
Yeah, you do have a lot of good people, and it's funny because the ones that are experienced, like, people know without knowing. I don't want to drop real names here, but the guy that plays Sam the Butcher is in every community theater. Your daughter's been in shows with him, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, lots of
But
yeah, exactly.
but here's the funny thing about it: people who don't know him, they don't know anything about theater. They don't really know anything about Slaughterhouse. They know that Sam the Butcher's in there.
Oh yeah,
So yeah, you do make a mark, even if it's not well known. Now, Don, we're under the understanding that um the Order of the Dragon, its queue was originally set to be where Extreme Skyflyer was, but that may not be the case. Let's discuss that a little bit.
yeah. We talked about that, but you have someone there that is bent on making sure Tower Topics and me
Hmm.
are not correct with things we say. So they'll do what they can. If they have an opportunity to prove us wrong, they're going to do it. So, case in point, we said Windseeker would not be opening weekend. They did everything they could to try to get it open on opening weekend, even if it was just for one cycle, just to prove Tower
I think it
Topics
was
was
for
wrong.
one cycle.
Yeah. So we have a situation where, you know, someone there, takes exception to what we say on Tower Topics, and if they can prove us wrong, they want to try to. So we did say that that was going to be used for the new maze going into Blackout. Well, in an effort to try to prove us wrong, what they're looking at maybe doing now is not running Drop Tower during Haunt and using that queue for
Mm.
this maze because it's right next to it. So you could do that. So it's an attempt to, let's prove Tower Topics wrong and let's do this. Well, if you do this, um, you're proving Tower Topics was right in two accounts. You didn't put it where you were going to because you wanted to prove it was wrong, and then you put it over here with Drop Tower, which we're talking about now. So you proved us right again that that's what you were going to do, and you were going to shut down a ride uh, and not have that available for guests. I think that's pretty petty. If you're so bent on proving us wrong and that you're willing to not have a ride open during Halloween Haunt, I you just have to wonder sometimes, where the mindset and everything is there. But that's what the situation is. So we're either looking at Drop Tower now being the queue, or to go back to where they intended to do it, and that's the Skyflyer area.
Don, have I paid you my half of the rent in their head?
Not yet.
No, it's rent free. That's right. It's rent free.
That's right. It's
Yeah.
rent free. That's right.
Well, here's the thing. So if they've got the blackout building and they've got an open field in front of it with direct frontal access to it, then it's almost like I feel like to the general public, if they shut down Drop Tower to have the queue in there, and of course it's going to be like, we couldn't possibly have run Drop Tower because we needed that queue. First of all, they can see that there's a big open field there, so no one's going to buy that. And secondly, didn't they have it just kind of like down the bats queue before? Like they could do that too and still have Drop Tower running.
Yeah. So this is all, like I said, if that's the case and they do use that queue and Drop Tower is not running, it's all because one person was bent on trying to prove Tower Topics wrong. That is in the position where they could, determine what rides might be open, might not be open. So I don't know. I mean, is it really a big deal if Tower Topics was right about that was going to be an area for a queue where Skyflyer used to be? I don't think it's a big deal. I wouldn't, waste any time on it. But apparently they do.
Well, what's funny is, if we said there's going to be The Conjuring and it wasn't, or something along those lines, that would be a really big deal. But something like where the queue is, I feel like that's water off a duck's back, because couldn't the day before Haunt they change their mind about where a queue's going? Like, I don't feel like that's codified in June when we're talking about it. So even if something that we say, and that's something that we come across pretty often, things that we say are true and then they change. It's that as well as anybody. Let's put the queue here. Okay, now that we're thinking about it, let's put it somewhere else. So yeah, right. It's they should probably worry a little bit more about their role in the company than this. But I digress.
We both do.
We
it's, and you know what I mean. It is, like you said, the living rent free in people's heads. I mean, it's amazing how many things that they won't do just because we said it, or they change it to try to prove us wrong. I don't know. It just makes no sense to me. I think you just do what's best for the operation, regardless of who said it. Whether it was us, somebody on KI Central, does it really matter? I would be more focused on doing your job better than trying to prove us wrong.
Yep. And probably that's something you should concentrate on. Hey, we'll be right back with a hot take. Okay, let's remain on the subject of Halloween Haunt. And this is like blazing hot as of this recording, because the all season Haunt Maze Pass thing for $59.99, it's sold out. It's sold out on Monday. They sold so many. As some of the park shills say, that season pass holders are absolutely committed to investing in these upcharge mazes. Of course, they say that because they get free VIP parking and access to media day in exchange for saying that and defending the social media girl. But here's the funny thing about it. $59.99 sold out. So they're out of inventory, right? The next day, it's on sale again for $79.99. Okay. 24 hours after that, as of the recording right now, $99.99. So you could make the argument that they were going to sell so many of these, like they were going to sell 250, 500 for $59.99, and then the price would go up. Okay. But the problem is they changed the price at all the other parks too. Like King's Dominion went up in at the exact same time. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to create an artificial demand. So I don't know how many of these sold. I actually kind of think that maybe they haven't. $59.99, and it was sold out just long enough for us to talk about it on our socials. And you wrote, like, I don't know if you wrote a blog or just a Facebook post, but KI Central had it, and all of a sudden it's for sale again, and then it goes down and it comes up again. Now, frankly, I think that 99 should be the price. I don't think it should ever have been 59. That's way too low. So if you sold thousands of those, then everybody would be in the express line and everybody would be in line for The Conjuring. So what's the point of even having it? But why do you have to essentially lie? Why do you have to sell it for a certain price, claim it's sold out. We know it's not sold out. Raise the price, put it on sale again for 24 hours. It's sold out again, and then it goes up to another higher price. It's like this is the slimiest thing that they've done ever since changing the language on the Prestige Pass. And if people bought a lot of these things, then now they know that they can do that. But now we know that they're willing to do that. So in the future, when they start posting these things and they claim they're sold out or whatever, you can wait to buy. 59 is a good price to have. If that's your price point, you want to have it, buy it, make the decision that's best for you. But don't think that you have to buy it now because you may not be able to get your hands on it. Because I would say that as it stands now with this recording, you'll probably be able to buy it up to the beginning of November. That'd be my guess. So what do you think? What do you think about this price change? Let me know in the comments. Don?
Ryan, one of the things marketing people do, and it's brands throughout, across the nation, is, when there's no demand, how do you create demand? You do things like this. You put a sold out sign on it, or you put hurry before they run out. You find some people that will take it to social media on your behalf and try to, create that buzz. And then it takes on a life of its own. So because they put the sold out sign, everybody started talking about that, and it just kind of spread. So it was kind of viral that way. So in some ways, genius, doing it that way. But that's how marketing teams work. It's not just the, Kings Island, Six Flags thing. I mean, that's, Wendy's, McDonald's, all of them, they all do those kind of things where, you create, like what was the word you used? False something. Artificial demand.
Artificial demand. Yeah. Inflating artificial demand.
Yeah. I think that's one of the ways you do it, and you get somebody, or 2 or 3 people that, hey, can you post about this, that it's sold out? And it was interesting how, within moments of it going to 99 on the website, there was a post in the Facebook group about it, so that they were like working hand in hand. It's like transparent that they were working hand in hand, to get that kind of information and stuff, making sure that information got out there. And a lot of, sometimes it's you can tell it's, with different people, they have a way with their words. And you can tell if the words are, marketing speak in a way, or it's their own genuine, way of saying things. And you can tell that by going through a person's history on their social media to know what they do and everything with that. But like I said, it worked. It's got people talking about it. Might have got a few more people to buy it at, when it went up into the 70s, and now at $99 as of this recording. So, whatever that was all about, the buzz was created, and it might have sold a few more for them. You'll know, just like Coaster Stock, when it was proclaimed as being sold out, when it wasn't, people knew once they got to especially those that had been there year after year, knew when they got to the picnic grove for the catered meals that, there's a lot more open seats in here now. Before people had to be sitting outside and on the grass and that. So they knew that there wasn't as many. And on the tours, they knew there wasn't the crowd that had been there before, when it was actually sold out. So you can't really trust that when they put sold out on one of those, one of those buttons on the product. And if a product was sold out, it would be because that's as many as we can sell.
Right.
And it wasn't as many as they could sell because they changed it, the next morning, and then they changed it again. So we had 3 price changes in less than 48 hours, going from $59 to $99 in less than 48 hours. So yeah, people are smart. They see what's going on.
And again, to me, it's what this is training people for is they say something and it's not necessarily true. Because again, I know that there are a lot of especially startup products and stuff where it's like the first 500 are $100, the second 500 are $150, the third 500 are $200, and it gets you to get on the ground floor. But that's not what they're doing here, because they changed the prices at all the parks at the same time. So But with that being said, I don't have a problem with the price point because I want this to be expensive. Like, I hate to say that, and I hate to like be in the park's corner for something like that, but I want it to be where people actually have to make a decision. Is this product right for me? At $60, yeah, whatever, just take it. At $100, that costs almost as much as your Gold Pass.
Yeah,
As
yeah,
much as your Gold Pass this year. So that way, people have to make a decision, and they have to deliver on this product.
yeah. At 99, they're not giving away the product, like they were at 59.
Yep. So love to hear your thoughts in the comments. We'll be right back with the segment we like to call Buy or Sell. Don, buy or sell? With the recent discovery of the elimination of Tinker's Toy Factory from Winterfest 2025 and how much the beloved elves are used throughout the event, Tinker and all of his elves will be featured in a brand new show in the Kings Island Theater and will not disappear after all. Buy or sell?
Well, I'm gonna buy that Tinker and some of his friends are not going to disappear. What we had talked about in an episode was that show, Tinker's Toy Factory, was not coming back as that show. Now,
Right.
whether Tinker's in there and some other things, that's whatever they do with that. It's not the same show. So I am going to buy that. There'll still be a Tinker, and there'll still be some elves, but it won't be the same show that guests loved. And look forward to seeing every year.
Yeah, for better or worse. Now, I do believe that we will have Tinker and his little friends because I still think they'll be in the parade. I think that people that have these spots for, other, let's say they replace that with another show with, a sizable cast or whatever, they may still dress them like elves because it worked really well for the parade. So I think
Yeah,
you'll see Tinker and his little friends regardless. But
either way, exactly. But I
yeah,
do
yeah.
think the show will. I mean, there'll be something with Tinker in it and stuff like that. It just won't be that same show
Mhm.
that guests loved and look forward to seeing every year. It'll be something else in there, and that's good. I mean, like you said, it could be good, it could be bad. You know, we'll have to see it the first night to know what if that was the right move by the park.
For better or worse.
Yeah. So before we get to our next thing, Ryan, I wanted to touch on something.
Yeah.
Um, it's been a rough year at Kings Island, no question about it. A number of
Mhm.
rides have gone down, some for extended periods. We're talking Whitewater Canyon, Congo Falls has had its ups and downs, in Vertigo as of this recording. You know, doesn't look promising that you're going to see that running anytime soon. Monster, but I mean, over the weekend, on Saturday, prior to this recording, uh, some guests, they reported that a little bit rough on the beast going through the second part of the helix as before you went into the tunnel part, that it was kind of
Mhm.
like a pothole kind of effect. So the
Yeah.
ride shut down. And then early part of Sunday, the ride's not open. It did reopen later in the day. And my point is, there's a lot of parks out there. The park wasn't going to be open on Monday. Daily operation was ending. You would have seen at a number of parks where the maintenance team would have just said, "Oh, we'll just get to it Monday. We can just keep it closed." But that's not the way the Kings Island maintenance team, thinks. They wanted to make sure and do everything they could to get this ride back in operation, just like they did with Whitewater Canyon. They could have taken their time with that. Let's get to it after daily operation and that, and they got it back up and running. Congo Falls, another situation where let's hold off on that. So I just want to tip of the hat to the maintenance department, because I think as long as Kings Island's been around, even going back to the Coney Island days, that maintenance team has been, is now, and hopefully always is one of the best in the industry, because they take pride in the uptime with these rides. And it would have been a very easy decision to just say, let's wait until Monday and we'll start working on the beast and have it ready to go when the park reopens on Friday. But that's not what they did. They made sure that they got it back open for the last part of the day on Sunday, and I got to ride it. Um, but yeah, I mean, they do great work, and they just don't get the credit that they deserve. When you look around and just see a lot of the complaining about the number of rides that aren't up, they're doing the best they can, and if they can get it running, they're going to.
Yeah, I like that. And there are certain things that Kings Island is known for amongst people in the know that they haven't faltered from. So, I mean, we've talked about one side of the racer being open and so on, and that is a nuisance. have they ever really run like 2 trains on Diamondback just because it wasn't busy, or 1 train on Banshee? Or no, and they've never done that. Like I know that you mentioned in like the 70s they would add a train to the racer or whatever, but at least in my history with the park dating back to the early 90s, it's, the Vortex always ran 3 trains, barring extraneous situations. My fear, along with everybody else, is, Six Flags, the old Six Flags, wasn't like that. They only put 2 trains on when the line got to like an hour and a half. Are we going to see that? And the way that it's looking right now, maybe not.
Yeah, talking about the racer, like back in the days, and this is the Taft days,
Mm-hmm.
from 1972 all the way really until, pretty much Paramount took over. The racer would start the day with 1 train on each side. Maintenance would work on the other, trains. You could see them, underneath the trains working on it as you would go by going up the lift hill on your train. And then around, 11 o'clock, 11:30, they'd put the other trains on. So that's how the racer operated in those early years, and that's just the way it was. Running one side, that's not a maintenance thing. When they're doing that until noon, one side, and then at 8 o'clock they would close down the other side. That's not maintenance. That is budget driven for those decisions. So it's not like it's anything due to the ride being broken down or any kind of a maintenance problem. It's just for budget reason. That's what they want to do. Just like running the KI and Miami Valley Railroad, with 3 coaches instead of 6, because it saves money. So that's the reason for those kind of things.
Yeah, and I wasn't suggesting that, that Six Flags was running 1 train on, certain rides or whatever because of maintenance. I think that it was purely budgetary.
Budget, exactly, budget reasons, and would get into next year, when it's probably going to be an even tougher year for Six Flags in this first year after the merger. I think that's something that you could start to see on some rides is, can we run it with 2 trains? Can we run it with 1 train, on the less busy days? Some parks, 5 or 6 rides would be down, not because of maintenance, just because we're saving money, or they'd rotate in like the kids area, or they'd shut the kids area down an hour before park closing at some parks, just for budgetary reasons. You don't see that at Kings Island. So I think that's a good thing. And guests should be, should be excited that this is their home park.
Yeah, there are many reasons why I'm excited Kings Island's my home park, and the fact that they're always, the maintenance is always second to none. That's always what I liked about it. Let's move on to a new segment. Let's move on to a new segment we like to call On the Point.
Yeah, Over the Point. Yeah, Over the Point would be new.
Point.
We do have a lot of Cedar Point fans that listen to Tower Topics, and it had been suggested, can you drop some things in there about Cedar Point? Great that you talk about Disneyland, Disney World, Universal and all that, but the odds of me getting there aren't great. But I am going to make, visits to Cedar Point. I have, the all park, passport, those kind of things. So a lot of our listeners right in the middle, they live in Columbus, halfway between Kings Island, Cedar Point. So we just thought we'd, touch on something that's happening at Cedar Point in each of our episodes. So Over the Point, the first one here with this new Cedar Point news is, one of the engines on the Cedar Point and Lake Erie Railroad, Myron H-22, built in 1922 by the Vulcan Iron Works Company. It recently got some much needed tender, loving care. All 72 of the boiler tubes were replaced and new tires were placed on the locomotive. And yes, trains do have tires. They also took the time while the locomotive was out of service to do some cosmetic restoration work. It's one of my favorite rides at Cedar Point. I've even said I'd rather ride this than Steel Vengeance. I think it's one of the best steam trains out there in the entire industry. Outside of the Dollywood Express, this would be number 2 on my list. But what's your favorite part about riding the train at Cedar Point, Ryan?
Boneville, duh.
Oh, yeah,
Boneville.
exactly.
I didn't know. I've said this before. I did not know about Boneville until like 4 years ago. And I had ridden the train a bunch of times. I just never took that leg of the route. But Boneville is my favorite. I also like that smell of like the burning coal and stuff. You get that at Dollywood too, but I love that. But I would agree. I think Cedar Point's train is the most underrated in the industry. Dollywood's is the best I've ever been on, but this is definitely the most underrated.
Yeah, for sure on that. And it's something that, it's must do for me when I go to Cedar Point. Now, sometimes when they get to the fall and those Thursdays, they don't run it. The early weekends and Halloween weekends, maybe on the Friday they won't run it. But, if it's running, for me, it's a must do attraction. I have to do it. And a lot of times I'll ride it, 2 or 3 times. I just love it. Boneville, that's great. But you get some great views of some of the coasters too.
Sure
You go
do.
around and you get some great views of Millennium Force, Maverick. Another one. One of the depots is right by Steel Vengeance, so uh, it's a ride that adds a lot of character and charm to Cedar Point.
I agree. All right, we'll be back with the listener questions. All right, first listener question, Jay from Piqua, Ohio. He said, why was the Maestro's skin color green in the promos and the physical sign for Phantom Theater, but the animatronic for him was in blue? Were the original animatronics all supposed to be green and then they changed it? I never even thought about it until I bought a Phantom Theater sticker last weekend at the park. Thanks. I noticed that too. Do you know?
Yeah, visual impact. When you're in the once you get to the production stage and you start to see what things might look like under the light, it might be more washed out or something. So that had a lot to do with why those colors changed, versus what the renderings and all those were when the ride was introduced and was part of the the media package and everything for it.
Yeah, I mean, and you see that a lot actually. One that kind of got you a little bit was it like the water tower from Paramount was still in the Banshee video or something like that, and people were like upset about it, and then they ended up removing it because like it's just some 3D artist had made it. Like they don't think about that sort of thing. But yeah, so well, first of all, could you imagine those characters being green other than blue? I think blue is so perfect for them.
Yeah, it was just one of those things. Again, once you start to send it from the artist renderings and all that, and then you put it into production and you start to see what things are going to look like when they're in the room under the light, and that that's why they'll why they will touch up some of the colors and that on the different animatronics.
Scott from Morrow, Ohio said, Don was at the park when Vortex was announced to close. At that time, did the park know what was going to replace it? And if so, can you now say what that was?
No idea. I mean, they there was no plan. It just the decision was made in August that Vortex was going to be retired. It was a very difficult decision to make. It was going to cost a lot of money to keep it running, do the work that needed to be done. Part of it was it needed a new control panel. It's going to be very expensive. So was there going to be that return on the investment? I think looking back, if they had to do it again, they've seen what they've done at Busch Gardens with Loch Ness Monster. I think they would have done something like that to preserve it. But no, there wasn't anything in mind for what was going to replace it. No timetable, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Nothing was on the board. It was just that decision had to be made. Are we going to put the money into keeping it going, or we're moving on? And it was just move on. Previous to that, Firehawk, we knew Orion was going to be coming in to replace it. So there was something to go in that spot. And there's other times, with rides when they're retired, there's something already on the board. But that wasn't the case with Vortex. And there still wasn't anything on the board as far as I know, for what they're going to do there.
Yeah. Next one was sent via voicemail to 513-399-7538. If you want to leave us a voicemail and be featured just like this person, then hit us up.
Hey, Tower Topics host. This is Josh from Cincinnati, Ohio. You know me as the FYE Coasters. I just have a quick question. On a previous episode, you guys mentioned about the Prestige Pass, possibly overselling that with the deal they're running right now. You also touched on about the preferred parking being overfilled. I myself specifically bought the Prestige Pass to have the front row parking. My other question is you also hear people complain about the handicap parking. So with that being said, could you see them possibly expanding the preferred parking over to where the bus area is and then pushing the bus area closer to Great Wolf? And then if so, that would probably make people that have the handicap parking kind of mad because that law hasn't changed as far as I know. Thanks, guys. Keep up the great work, and we'll see you in the parks.
Yeah, and that's Josh from FYE Coaster. So check him out on YouTube and the different social media channels. Don, I thought that the Prestige Pass came out late 2022, going into 2023, and I assumed that they would have a problem filling it in 2023, but they never really did. But now it's $200. Now I'm very concerned about this.
Yeah, there's not enough space there to fit the number of Prestige passes that they're going to sell on those weekends, the Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. So if you don't get there 9:15, 9:30 range, by 10 o'clock, that lot's going to probably be full most of those days. So if you bought it for the parking, there's more people with a Prestige pass, then that's going to hold on the average day. So I still think into the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays for the most part, you'll be able to get into it. But I don't see them expanding it any further than what it is. They have to have that space for the buses. There are days, especially in the spring, where from that point all the way on down to Great Wolf Lodge is filled, with the school buses. So I don't see anything happening there. I think it's just, you're just going to have to get there early. And if not, they're just going to say, well, the lot filled up today.
Yeah, and I pointed this out when the MVP sale was announced. If you go and complain, they're going to be like, "What do you expect? You paid $200 for your pass. Like, what level of service do you want?" Which is unfortunate, but we'll see what happens. Like, I definitely think that there's something to be said about the value of Prestige being $200 versus the Gold being $100. But I still stand by that. I think that the vast majority of people are going to be like, I can get $100 pass or $200 pass. They both get me into all the parks, and then again, you're tacking on the food plan, the drink plan, and so on. It gets pretty expensive.
It does.
The pass itself isn't bad, but then you start tacking on that other stuff, and that's when it gets a little crazy. So maybe we won't have that problem. I fear that we will. I think we'll get a taste of it during Haunt this year, though, really. So I think most of the people that were going to buy a Prestige pass will have by the end of the year this year.
I feel that, if there's like that 2-lane road, that divides the lower lot where Prestige is on the other side, going up toward the marquee. Yeah. But there's spots on that side, on the other side of the road, that you're going to be closer to parking there than you are in some of the Prestige spots. So it's nice, that if you get there early enough that you can get real close to the front gate. But for the most part, that would not be the reason that I would buy Prestige. I've had a lot of people. I did we talked about it on the show, and I put it on my socials and wrote one of my blogs about, considering the different pass options. I had door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, and door 2 was Prestige. But a lot of people reached out to me, and they had pretty compelling reasons why I might want to consider Prestige. So I appreciate everyone's feedback with that. And there's others that told me that they were thinking about doing door number 3, which was not doing anything and waiting till the middle of next summer when they run something like this again and getting the rest of 2026 and all of 2027. So there's a lot of options out there, but I think that there's more compelling reasons now to buy Prestige at this lower price than there was when it was first introduced.
I think that, there's a principle behind, what happened for the $400 price point that me and many others paid that kind of got ripped off a couple of years ago. But if we put that in the past, for $100, if you came to me and you said, Ryan, there's an add-on you can get for your season pass, $100, and it includes preferred parking, it includes 1 ride line skip per visit, 15% off merchandise, and so on. Like, remove the Prestige pass verbiage out of it. I hop at it. Yeah. So that's where my head's at. The beauty of it is, even if there are times when you don't get the parking preferred, I mean, maybe they're right. For $100 more, if you get the parking preferred 85% of the time, you're still doing pretty well. You know, I hate to take that thought process, but it is what it is.
They say the sale ends September 1st.
We'll see.
They always do extensions. So if you were a betting man, Ryan, would you bet that the MVP sale will be extended past September 1st?
Maybe it'll be sold out on September 1st and then come back September 2nd for $119 for gold. You never know anymore. It'll be extended. But it might be extended more than a week. It might be through the end of September or something.
I think it would go, it would be the 5th, would be the Friday, right? So
Yeah.
I think that they'll put out there on the 2nd that, because it was a holiday weekend and people didn't have time to do it and everything like that, the normal holiday weekend, that's why we had to extend it, kind of a thing. So I do think, you'll have some extra time. Don't hold off just because we said that, but I do think that there will be, because that has been, the history of season passes.
Yeah, don't bank on that. But I mean, come on. When was the last
Well,
time?
because we're saying that. Well, now because we're saying that there will be an extension, there won't be an extension. That's how it works.
Ooh, that could really cost them money. We should start predicting things that are like really good ideas so they don't do them. Yeah. Anyway, if you got your own questions, send us an email, host@towertopics.com. Your first name, the city you're from, as well as your question, comment, concern. You want to be a little bit more snazzy, you can send us a text or a voicemail, 513-399-7538. If you send us a text, we'll read it. If you send us a voicemail, we might play it on the air like we did for Josh's. It's 513-399-7538. This is not an actively monitored phone number, so we're not going to answer when you call us. John, tell them about the t-shirts.
Tower Topics t-shirts. Now listen up here, because things are going to be changing pretty soon here with Tower Topics t-shirts. But $22, it includes your shipping, any size that you want. Simply send us an email, host@towertopics.com. And in the subject line, just put, t-shirt, Tower Topics t-shirt, just something that lets us know that's what that's about. Mm-hmm. In the body text, your full name, your mailing address, what size shirt you need. We will email you back the QR code to get your shirt, to make the purchase. Once the transaction goes through, just a matter of days before you get your shirt. But what's going to happen here is we're only going to do it this way until Labor Day. After Labor Day, if you've not purchased your Tower Topics shirt, you're going to have to wait until we launch our online store. So
we're getting an online store.
Yeah, we've made some good progress on that. So we're going to go a different direction with it, make it easier for you to make your purchases. You won't have to hear us talk about it every episode. It'll just be something that, it's available. We'll have the URL for you and everything. But after Labor Day, we're not going to do it this way where we're sending you the QR code or anything like that. It's going to be purchased online. That store will not launch until maybe late fall, end of October, beginning of November.
A couple weeks later at the earliest. So there will be a gap of at least a few weeks where we will not have Tower Topics t-shirts available. Of course, that's when everyone's going to want them. So, but they'll be sold out, but they'll come back for $32. And then they'll sell out again the next day. And
that's something that might happen too. I mean, we may have to raise the price a little bit with the online store part of it. Not a lot. Instead of 22, it might become 24 or something. But if you want to get it for 22, lock that price in. Now's the time to do it. Make your purchase before Labor Day, September 1st. And, you'll still get the shirt at that price in the same system that we've been using since the launch of Tower Topics.
Yeah. And, I've been doing a lot of the work for the online store. Lots of cool products. You got coffee mugs, like, I don't know if they're Stanley brand, but cups kind of like that, little baby onesies. And we can do a myriad of different designs and stuff. You can do a bunch of different colors. So super excited about that. More to come in the future. If you want to be in touch with Tower Topics, search for Tower Topics on Facebook. We have our own Facebook group. We will not delete your comments if you had a bad experience at the park. We will not delete your comments if you had a good experience at the park or a mediocre experience at the park. That's where we connect. We talk about the show. We form more of a community than anything else. So we'd love to see you become part of the Tower Topics Facebook group. While you're online, search for Noah the Field Reporter. He's our third host. Noah is the coolest kid I know. And he's got his own YouTube channel. He's trying to take off. He just got enough to go live. And we'd love to see people subscribe there and see the park. And, he did Strickers Grove and see the world through the eyes of a 9-year-old.
Yeah, Noah's the future of Tower Topics. So make sure you support him.
Yeah, because you want to be on his good side. Okay, I'm Ryan Sir, along with Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.